right, welcome to episode 9 of Flag Stays Down podcast. My name is Andy. You can find me at Comiskey North. Tonight we've got Parker at DJ Parkour, and you've got Matt, who I'm pretty sure still does not know what his Twitter handle is. Boys, how are we doing on this Sunday Halloween evening?
Happy Halloween, gentlemen.
It's been a good day. Can't complain. Handing out candy to the youngsters, so it's all's good.
Yeah, I'm the one who's got the kid in the group here, so going around, hi, how are you, to every single house has been fantastic. You know, go out to the burbs. Everybody's got Jello shots for you. It's quite the day, and it's even better following up a 3-0 victory with the rest of the league kind of dropping points here. So, before we get into it, like we always do, you guys working on anything on, again, this holiday evening?
Go ahead, Matt.
I am just sucking down a nice Coors Light, or as I call them, a CL smoothie, and it tastes fantastic. So I don't have complaints. I'm doing quite well. Parks, what do you got?
I got water today, coming off of a vacation where I think I went 10 days straight drinking more than I should, including a couple of brewery trips. So got to see Castle Danger, which was a real fun one, and others up north of Minnesota. So taking a bit of a break. Much needed.
Well, Parker, you joined the majority. We always run the pre-match poll. And this week it was, what are you drinking going into the match? It was beer, coffee, whiskey, or water. Water, slight edge at 36%. So congrats, Park. You win that one. I am working on a little Mobcraft Low Funk, very sour, kind of I don't know if it's an ale or pilsner or whatever it is. It's pretty good. Mobcraft looking to expand though, which is good. They're primarily in Milwaukee, Wisconsin here, but then I know they're looking to open a brewery in, I believe it's Denver, or Colorado Springs. So looking forward to that, but good stuff.
Cheers.
All right. So we have 2 matches on the week. We're getting to the point of the year where it's going to be 2 matches a week, every week. This week it was Southampton in the League Cup, which we all expected to be kind of a tough one, and then Newcastle on the weekend. New money Newcastle on the weekend. So, we'll start with Southampton here. It was 1-1. Was a Kai Havertz goal in the 44th minute, right before half. Really thought that would be a game changer, but no. Southampton score right after halftime. Shea Adams scoring that. But Chelsea win on penalties. Kepa, I believe he had 1 save in that, and Reece James hitting home the winner. Boys, do you have any thoughts on the midweek match, Carabao Cup?
My biggest thing that worries me now is the fact that we give up goals. It's not the first time it's happened, right? If we look back at the Juve game, gave up the goal to Chiesa right after the start of the second half. And now we're seeing the same thing against Southampton. That worries me a little bit, just because with as sound of a defense as we have, and with the level of veterans that we have, it kind of baffles me that we're able to give up goals that quickly to start the second half when everybody should be switched on. It seems like for the first 2-3 minutes of that second half, we're just not ready to go. We're kind of getting in that false sense of security where we're not expecting much of the opposition, but then they come out and just kind of punch us right in the mouth. To me, that it's a little bit worrisome. But I mean, overall, again, I look at it this way. If you look at the FA Cup, all of our draws have been against Premier League teams. We haven't played anybody from the Championship. Like, we haven't played any of these teams where coming off of international break, they don't have a lot of players going out, stuff like that. I do think that we have a much tougher draw than a lot of other teams, but at the same time, we have the talent and the squad that should be able to handle that type of thing day in and day out. So it's just one of those things where it just kind of creeps up, where it's a little bit worrisome, but at the same time, we can handle it. We have a firepower on the offense for right now, at least with the way that we're playing. We have enough firepower, but I think long term, it's something that definitely needs to be addressed.
Yeah, Matt, you brought up the goal, which is concerning right after half. But the only thing I think about is it was two of our players that don't normally play. I think it was Malang Sarr's error that led to the turnover. And then, they were kind of through on goal. And then it was Kepa who kind of made a goalie blunder where it squirted right between his legs. And probably a ball he should save. I think it's a ball that Mendy saves. So a little bit less worrisome for me, just because I know I know Sarr's kind of still getting his footing in the Premier League. He's played well so far, but my big takeaway was it was a good start to the week for Kai, and it was a good start to the week for Reece James with that decisive penalty. I mean, I've never seen someone who's, I don't even know how old Reece James is, 20, 21. He's so calm, goes up there for the decisive penalty, takes it, kind of puts his arms out like, hey, everybody, I'm here. And I love it. I just love to see like the smile on his face when he plays. So those were the two big takeaways for me. Kai getting a good goal, kind of a goal or a defending blunder from Southampton. If you ask me, it was he didn't really do too much to earn it. The ball from Ziyech was good, but nothing special. It didn't look like. And Kai kind of had a free header, and he did what he needed to do. He put it where it needed to be. But I thought Kai had a good week, better than prior weeks. So it was positive from him.
See, and I thought it was kind of the same on both ends. Yeah, yes, Kai had an easy header on that ball. But to start the second half, I thought Southampton had a great opportunity there. It was a lapse in judgment by Trev. Chalobah could have easily gone out and gotten that ball, could have stuck in a foot out. Kepa could have done more on that ball easily. He could have rushed out on that ball. But you have a back three of Malang Sarr, Trev Chalobah, and Reece James. Reece James is not typically your right center back. And then you have Kepa, who plays once every, couple weeks at this point. It was an experience. I totally wiped this off inexperience. But it was a hell of a match to watch. Holy cow, was right after halftime. We went into the first half, or went into halftime thinking, it's kind of a boring match. Not really much in it. Chelsea's kind of dominating possession-wise, but not really a lot of attack. But as soon as Southampton scored, man, it was 20 minutes of just attack after attack, both sides. It was fantastic to watch, and you don't see that a lot in the Carabao Cup. I enjoyed it. It was hard to watch at times. I think what do we have? About 14 shots on goal. I think I had texted you guys, and one goal to show for it. So that is concerning. But at the same time, we have both strikers, Timo and Big Rom, out due to injury. Looking like it's going to be another couple weeks. It's been about 10 days as of the time we're recording here. So we do have about 2, maybe 3 weeks left before they're coming back. Is this run of wins sustainable with no striker?
I personally don't think that it is. I mean, if we look at it, you have our leading scorers being Jorginho on penalties alone, Chills, who's playing out of his mind right now, and then also Reece. So you're relying on our defensive midfielder, our starting left wing back, and our right wing back. That's where we're at right now. Kai, yeah, he might get one here and there, but you're seeing nothing out of Cho. Mount, obviously he was out ill, but I mean, he had himself a great game against Norwich. We all know about that. I just think that I don't know how sustainable it actually is. I think that the fact that we're relying on our defensive, the fact that we have arguably two of the best defensive backs, scoring defensive backs in the league right now, possibly the world. I think that we're relying on that. I don't think it's going to hold for much longer. They're playing well right now, but I don't think that is a formula for going forward. I think we need to see more productivity out of the wings, like a Cho, like a Ziyech. I think Kai needs to start producing a little bit more than what he has been. But I think until we get Timo or Big Ron back, I think it's going to be it's going to be an issue until we get them back. That's kind of how I look at it. It can only be sustained for so long. And granted, we are not playing the greatest of competition, at least as far as it ranks in the Premier League. But at the same time, it's something that needs to change. These are games where these people should be scoring. And we're just not seeing it to kind of what it should be.
So Matt, you use the word rely, as in we're relying on certain people. I don't think we're relying on anybody. I think we have the most balanced sort of attack, and right now it's Reece James's time. But 2 days ago it was Mason Mount's time where he had a hattie, and then Chills has been in form, and it just, we've been spreading the attack from all facets. Defenders have scored, wingbacks have scored, midfielders have scored, and our strikers are both out. But Big Rom started off the year scoring 3-4 goals as well. I think with what our biggest strength is, that we have this sort of relentless attack, relentless pressure that comes at you, and anyone can score. And we don't know who it's going to be, but there's no one that they can key on, or if they do try to key on somebody, it's going to free someone else up to score. So I think that's one of the keys. You said it though, we aren't playing the best of competition. However, I think like when Newcastle or anybody parks 11 people behind the ball, it's really hard to score. I mean, it's just hard to break teams down when everyone is just sitting in a very, very compact place. It's difficult. We had a lot of really good chances about Newcastle. I know we'll talk more about Newcastle later, but we had a lot of really good chances. I mean, Ziyech had a bunch of balls that were about a foot over the bar, and balls that are in the right area. And just you need like 3 quality moves or passes or moments to really break down a defense like that. When you're playing against better teams, the game's going to be a little bit more open. It's going to be a little bit more end to end. And what I've seen Chelsea improve on, again, it's against not as great of competition, but what I've seen them improve on is to be able to break the press and get out and go. And when we look the most dangerous is when we are moving, when we have some space and we can play some of these balls out. So I think without Timo and Rom, obviously I want to see him in there, but I've really liked the movement that we've shown and the amount of creativity our wing players have come in, where Chills and James are getting into the attack, and we're doing a lot of overlapping runs. And I think like Ziyech is a really interesting player that I feel like he could just have a string of games where he scores four goals. Mount's a guy who can do that as well. Kovacic can score goals. I mean, the only dude out there that I don't think can score a ton of goals is like Saul and Conte and Jorginho. Like those are some of the only guys that on the field that I don't think can score. Everyone else is like due for one. I mean, striker Rudy, right? Like, so that's I don't like to see them out, but I think our team is creative enough where we can sustain a winning pattern without them.
So the one thing that I will say, I completely agree with that. However, if we look at the first half of the Southampton game, if we look at the attack, everybody looks so disconnected. They looked like they didn't know who to pass the ball to. Like, should I take this shot? Should I pass it? Like, when Ram is in, everybody knows that he's going to be the target man. Without him, without Timo, it looks like they don't know what to do. It's like, okay, well, we're designed to go to Rom and kind of build off Rom or get the ball to Rom, but without him, it's like, what do we do? Do we shoot? Do we keep trying to pass? Like, and then that ends up being kind of like wasted opportunities, because we see opportunities where it should be like, okay, have that shot, but they're still looking to try and make that extra pass. I feel like in that final third, so if we just focus on the final third, I feel like they're still a little bit lost and still trying to understand kind of what their role is and how they should proceed going forward. I think that, and if we look at the rest of it, having our wing backs and whatever, having them score the goals, I think there needs to be more emphasis on that front three to produce more than they have been. I guess that's kind of how I look at it. I think that front three needs to, whoever that should be, that front three, their job is to score goals. And I don't see enough consistency from them where it would be sustainable going into this run that we're going to have before the new year.
Especially a dude like Cho. I think like he needs to be a regular scorer. He needs to be scoring once every 3 games, and he's not at that level yet. I think he creates a ton, and I think he's really positive, but I would love to see him be on the score sheet more consistently, end of line. So I agree with you on that point, Matt.
See, and I struggle with this because I'm not the biggest fan of the guys who are in our front three. Obviously, as I've said before in the past, Ziyech, I'm a fan of. I watched a ton of Ajax matches last year or 2 years ago, because honestly I was too cheap to buy ESPN Plus and Peacock and all of that. So I watched a lot of Ajax matches, and I was big on him. But Kai has struggled since he's came to the league. Cho has struggled, obviously being only 20 years old, so he's got an excuse there. But I did have some back and forth with Chewing Tunes on Twitter during the Newcastle match. That and he raised some valid points in that maybe Thomas Tuchel doesn't know how to manage decent forwards. We have plenty of high paid forwards in the squad, as has been well documented, and he's got the defense squared away. He's got the midfield squared away. But he has some strikers, some forwards who have pretty solid track records. Timo Werner obviously did very well in the Bundesliga. Kai Havertz did very well in the Bundesliga. Big Rom did well in Serie A. Maybe he just doesn't know how to manage good forwards. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Because I hadn't put a whole lot of thought on that until seeing that this week.
So if you look at who Thomas Tuchel had, especially when he was with Dortmund, he had a pure out and out striker with Aubameyang. Like you knew he was going to be up top, whatever. He can do whatever he needs to do. But Aubameyang was already established. We haven't really seen him in a sense of, can you establish a new striker? Can you develop somebody new? I think that he's already, and even when he went to PSG, he already had strikers. He already had a wealth of talent. Can he do it with essentially kids at this point? I don't think that he's really had the chance to do that, and I think that might be the one, that might be the one flaw that we kind of pick apart outside of everything else he's been doing, which has been masterful, is can he develop? And I don't necessarily know if that's his strong point.
I mean, did you guys see his comments? He talked about that if they want to score more goals, they just need to be a part of the wingbacks. Simple fix.
And the the track record, or at least this season on the wingbacks, has been ridiculous. It's been what I think I said 7 goals between Chills and Reece James.
Mm-hmm.
Just in the Premier League.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We're not including everything else. Like, and that's why I'm concerned that, you know, Parker, to your point, relying is probably not the right word. But the fact that our defensive 2/3 of our team is scoring majority of the goals, and our front three, who we paid to score goals, have not been producing as much. I think it's a bit of a problem. But then we go back to the point that we're talking about. Can Tuchel actually develop a young player into a striker? Which we don't know, because he's always had seasoned and experienced forwards up top with Aubameyang and I forgot who was at PSG at the time, Cavani. Like, experienced forwards and strikers who could just do their own thing and didn't really need a lot of development. They were already established.
So let me circle this all back around. Let me make this full circle here. Clearly, he has the defense figured out. He has the wingbacks playing as part of the midfield in an attacking role. We have 2 wingbacks who are very good at hitting the ball off the volley. 3 wingbacks, Alonso, Chills, and Reece James. You have Aspi, who's great at putting the ball into the box. So, without Big Rom and Timo Werner, maybe a leading question here, is this sustainable?
I say yes. I think so. I think we're creative enough. I think we have enough depth. I would like to see Hudson-Odoi, Havertz, Mount get on the score sheet more, but I've seen improvement with especially Havertz, because he scored a goal against Southampton and he drew the penalty, which if it wasn't a penalty, he would have scored a goal against Newcastle. So, I mean, he made a move around the keeper, got taken out, and he would have put it in the back of the net. So that would have been 2 goals on the week for him. He doesn't get credit for that, but I still look at it as, I mean, he made that run, got that ball, made the move, and would have slotted it. So that's positive out of Kai. I'm not the biggest Kai fan, but if he makes runs like that, then I think we're scoring goals.
I think that we're seeing more. I think we're seeing more improvement out of our center backs, out of our wing backs, out of our midfielders than we are like the front three. Like, if you look at, I really feel like we're seeing more improvement out of them than we are the front three. The front three still seems stagnant. Doesn't matter who's out there. It still seems very stagnant. And it's just something that I don't, with the stretch that we have and the amount of games coming up, I don't see it being sustainable going forward while Timo and Rom are out.
See, and I think it is sustainable. I know I haven't dropped a whole lot of opinions so far, but absolutely I think it's sustainable. And the reason is our defense is so stout. We will not allow any goals. Edward Mendy will not allow any goals. Kepa is determined to not allow any goals. And our back three is determined not to allow any goals. That as soon as we put forth that first goal, whether it's by a corner, whether it's off of a set play, whether it's some fluke goal like Reece James or Benny Chills hitting it off of a half volley off of a rebound, as soon as we hit that first goal, that's it. That's over. It's done. Then we have the authority to attack. Then we're going to drop 3 more goals on the opposing team. I think it's sustainable only because 1-0 secures a big win.
Until the second half starts.
Fair enough, but in the league, let me zoom in a little bit here. In the league, we've done this multiple times. We did it against Villa. We did it against Spurs. There's one more here. Sorry, I'm just flipping through all the tabs I have open here. Anyways, not important, but we've done it multiple times. Oh, we did it this weekend against Newcastle. That's the other one I was looking for. Wow. But as soon as we get that first goal, it's like teams are like, oh, that's it. They scored without a striker. They have 80% of possession. It's done. It's over. Kill it. That's why it's sustainable, because we have ingrained in the rest of the league that we are so stout defensively that as soon as we score, it's done.
Yeah, keep in mind, guys, that I think we've given up 20. We've given up 3 goals in the league this far, and I've scored 26. So those 3, we're hard to score on.
It's amazing. It's an amazing stat, and it continues to amaze me every week that people just kind of let that go as just a normal number. The last time this happened was 04-05. We let up 2 goals through 10 games. This year we've given up 3 goals through 10 games. By the way, we ended up winning the league that year. But it's just an insane figure to not give up any goals. And props to the entire defense, props to Mendy, props to Tuchel. It's fantastic to watch. Very, very throwback at this point.
Without parking the bus too, right? We're still scoring goals, which I really like. I definitely like seeing us not just win 1-0. Like the Jose Mourinho park the bus days. I'm happy we've kind of evolved our approach from that.
Yeah, and we talk about Jose and parking the bus. We do to an extent. We don't fully commit to parking the bus, but we definitely maintain possession. And I mean, we saw it against Newcastle. Even when we were up 1-0, we were still owning possession, and we were kind of kicking it around, just trying to break some things up. And when you have 11 people back or 10 people back, whatever the case is, like if you hold possession, you're going to be fine. But the fact that we still move the ball around, we're still looking, we're still trying to attack. I think that's a different tactic than the 04-05 Mourinho style, where we're just gonna kind of kick it around just to kill time. We're still looking. We still have that cutthroat mentality. Like 1 goal isn't enough. We know that we can score more. We know that we want more, and I think that plays a huge role in this whole ordeal for our team. Collins?
Yeah, and let's just real quick recap the Newcastle match, because we've touched on it a few times. And before we get into anything that's happened in this week, I feel like it's real important to just recap what happened. Newcastle 3-0 over the weekend at Reece James Park. Reece hitting the game winner in the 65th, and then doubles his mark on the 77th. Jorginho hits a penalty after Kai Havertz is brought down in the box in the 81st. So 3-0 on the weekend for us to maintain our spot at the top of the table. Now, again, we've talked about whether it's sustainable or not. I understand that. But we do have to talk about our front 3. We've had issues with, again, Timo's been out, not Kai, Big Ron has been out. So Kai has been our number 9. We've had Show on the left wing, and we've had alternating between Ziyech and Mason Mount on the right. Matt, you and I had differing opinions on both Cho and Ziyech, I feel, on the weekend. We'll start with Cho, because Callum Hudson-Odoi is your guy. I know that you're a big fan of his. How did you feel he did against Newcastle on the weekend?
I feel like the partnership between him and Chills is very, very good. I really do. I like Cho on the left. Even Tuchel has agreed his best position is on that left wing. I like the partnership that they had. Collins, you and I, we talked about this. Parker, you probably saw the text. I feel like they didn't attack as much in the first half along that left side. And we were kind of talking, it seemed a little inconsistent, things like that. They were kind of looking more at the right and relying on Ziyech and Reece and things like that. But once that second half hit, I don't even want to fathom the amount of one touch and two touch that Chills and Cho had, because they just obliterated that Newcastle defense. I think that Chills was getting into very good spots. Cho was getting into very good spots, good aggressive spots. They opened up a lot of stuff. And I agree with Tuchel. I think that the left wing position is the best for Cho, but he's also somebody that if we need to, we can throw him on the right wing back position. If we need to, we can throw him at a left wing back position. He'll track back and do what he needs to. But to get the most productivity out of him, he needs to be on the left wing. I thought that he had a very, very good game. He tired out that Newcastle defense basically before halftime. He was making runs and doing everything like that. I thought he had a great game. I would say probably a 7 or 7.5 out of 10 out of Cho.
All you, Collins, you have the different opinion, so all yours, man.
All right. Well, Cho, Matt, you were spot on. He was a 7.5 based on who scored. But my concern is he went unused basically probably 50 minutes of the game. The first quarter of an hour, everything was through the left. It was through Chills, it was through Cho. And then that wasn't working. So we started going through the right, and we went through Ziyech, and we went through Reece James. And that went through probably about the 60-minute mark. And it's because there wasn't any threat from that left side. Cho wasn't attacking players. Cho wasn't, whipping in anything dangerous. Granted, neither was Reece James. Neither was, well, I take it back. Ziyech was having a decent game at that point. But we'll get to that just a minute. Cho wasn't dangerous. He's 20 years old. As a 20-year-old, certainly don't expect him to light the world on fire. He's got room to develop. If he was anybody else at the club, he would have been loaned out for a year or 2 years, something like that. But in this match, clearly Tuchel saw something where it wasn't developing on that left side, where Cho wasn't important. Because there was a long period of time where I did not hear his name called, where we were not attacking on that front. It wasn't until Newcastle were worn down. It wasn't until fatigue started to set in that Cho could start attacking players. So I think once that fatigue set in, Cho had a great game. But I don't think that overall he had a truly fantastic game. I thought it was average.
So at the same time, yes, Newcastle's defense was fatigued, but you have to also keep in mind that he's making those runs where Newcastle has to respect that. Chills is also making runs where they have to respect that. So just because it's not on the score sheet, it's kind of like how we talk about like our defenders, like a Thiago Silva. He doesn't do a lot of stuff that's going to be on the score sheet or the stat sheet. Realistically, no, but you see all the things that he does behind the scenes, like reading the runs and being able to get to the ball ahead of time and seeing it ahead of time. I do think that maybe part of the plan was to try and wear them down. I agree. He wasn't huge on what we would call the score sheet or the stat sheet, especially in that first half or the first 60. But he did a lot of little things that I think went unwarranted. And that's what caused him to be able to break through, what caused him and Chills to be able to break through on that left side in the second half.
I just think he's better when he's got a little bit of space, when he can really run and get ahead of steam. And so I talked about it earlier, so I don't need to belabor the point, but when Newcastle sits 11 people behind the ball, it's hard for him to be great, I guess. When he's got some space to run and the game opens up a little bit, I think that's where we saw it. So we went up 1-0, a little bit more space, a little bit more open of a game, and Joe's got the ability to attack. But Matt, you're spot on, man. He's causing a lot of this, and if he's breaking down defense and forcing people to keep up with him and his pace, you have to really weigh that into the equation. So I thought he had a better than average game. Without looking at whoscored.com, Andy Collins, I would have called it an 8. That's just my mental where I kind of ranked it. I thought he could have been on the score sheet a couple of times had the ball bounced the right way for him. But he deserves a lot of praise. He deserves a ton of praise. We talk about age a lot on this podcast. He's 20 years old. He does a lot of really, really good things for the club, and it's a positive impact. And considering the fact that if we're at full strength, he might not be in the squad, and we're talking about a 20-year-old who's still making this big of an impact, speaks complete volumes to the kid. I think he's really bright, and I like him out there. I wish he did a little bit more, but that's really ticky-tacky on my part. Like that's the ultimate Chelsea fan in me wanting just the best out of what we got. But I also I'm not mad when he plays. So that's my take on show today.
So let me ask you guys this. Obviously, we have two wingers. Let's compare them. Cho, again, I think had an average day. Parker, like you said, probably above average. Matt, you thought he was very involved. How do you compare him against his compatriot on the other side in Hakim Ziyech? Because I thought Ziyech was the more dangerous out of the two wingers. Ziyech had a couple shots on goal. He was getting into dangerous areas. It seemed like we were playing through that right side because Ziyech could play the more dangerous ball. But again, that's just my perception. How do you guys compare the two, Cho and Ziyech?
I personally would take Cho over Ziyech. But let me just say this. I have seen a lot of improvement out of Ziyech. And Collins, you and I talked about this. He's looked much more aggressive. He is doing the one thing that we have talked about for a number of pods. He's tracking back. He's trying to get engaged on the defensive side of the ball. He just looks to try and win the ball back, where before he would just be very lackadaisical and just wouldn't even kind of give two shits. But now he's getting back. He's trying to get in, win the ball. I love seeing that out of him. I think from that standpoint, he's improved a lot. I think.
So, Matt, let me interrupt you real quick. Based off of this match alone, not the long, broader history, not any sentimental feelings about academy player versus the incoming transfer from Ajax. How do you feel Ziyech did against Cho?
I would put Ziyech at a 6.5, maybe a 7 out of 10 in this game. He wasn't bad. So I'm not saying that Cho was leaps and bounds ahead of Ziyech. I'm not saying that. I do think that Ziyech had a good game. I still think that there's a lot to be desired by watching Ziyech play. He did have that goal where he was offside, which we talked about that. Somebody of his caliber, when he's looking straight down the line of the defense, he should know to be onside. Like that's just something he has to do, and he knows better. It was a great hit, but at the same time, like he's got to know. I do think that he looks overall, I think he looks more dangerous than he has been. But in this particular match, I still think that him and Reece don't have quite as good of a relationship as Chills and Cho, which I think allows Cho to thrive a little bit more.
Yeah, one of the things I think about with like Ziyech is I almost think he's a little bit one track mind, and that's like the ball's always going one place, and that is like towards goal. Either he's shooting a shot on, or he's putting like a really dangerous direct ball to seek to try to find someone else, like for like a header or something like that. I wish he was a little bit more dynamic in his decision making. I was playing a little bit more 1-2, playing through balls on the ground a little bit more, stuff like that. I think he's just a little bit too predictable because he has to have more shots blocked than any other Chelsea player that I see, which is frustrating because I know he gets into decent spots, but I think everyone knows exactly what he's going to do, which is turn and boot the ball goalwards. That said, I think he's really close. He's got that ability. You can see it. You can see what he's trying to do, and you could see the quality in the goal that he got called offside on. Obviously, it shouldn't be offside, like you said, Matt, but you can see the quality in what he did when he picked that ball up. So I think he's a work in progress for us that could be very dangerous. And I'm calling it right now. It'll be a bold call. There's going to be a stretch where he scores in 3 or 4 straight games sometime during the season, where he just gets into form. I think it only takes a couple where he gets it and picks it up, and you're going to see a couple good goals, but he's going to get into form like that. Whether that's sustainable, that's another fun thing that we'll be able to talk about once that happens. But who would I rather have in that match based on one match? I'd rather have Hudson-Odoi. I'd rather have the dribble take on mentality of not just trying to score, but trying to set people up, trying to create, trying to get down that side and then put a ball in and set up his teammates. I'd rather have Callum Hudson-Odoi just based off on one performance.
Yeah, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but I think Hakim Ziyech was the more dangerous player. Looking, broadly throughout the match, it was 60 minutes us attacking down the right wing with Ziyech and Reece James. I'm not sure exactly why Tuchel or whoever was out on the pitch decided that we needed to attack down that right. But I thought Ziyech got into more dangerous spots. He had the goal that was called offsides, obviously, which was a great goal. Man, if he had scored it, that was fantastic. But I think he was the more dangerous player. He's obviously the more experienced player. He's 8 years older than Cho. Unfortunately, I think with his age, he's not a youth player. He's not a guy we're like, oh, he's going to develop. He's 28 years old. I think what we're seeing out of Ziyech is what we're going to get out of Ziyech. I don't think he's a player built for the Premier League. At Ajax, and I had mentioned this earlier that I'd watched a lot of Ajax matches. It was the attack went through him. It went through him, and he either attacked goal or he went through Quincy Promes, or can't think of who their striker is. Famous Dutch striker. Can't think of his name. Anyways, went through him on the attack, and it was a goal. Ajax scores 3-4 goals a match in Eredivisie. But the Premier League is a different animal. I think Newcastle, he was certainly more dangerous than Cho. I will put that on record. I think he was definitely more dangerous than Cho. But long-term, Parker, as you said, sustainability, I don't think Ziyech is necessarily sustainable unless he goes on a run where he's scoring goals like he did in the League Cup, like he does in the Champions League, things like that. He's not made for the Premier League. He's not made for Tuchel's system. He's a guy who would thrive in Spain. He's a guy who would thrive in Serie A. He's recently been linked with a loan move to AC Milan. I think that would be fantastic for him. I think he would light up AC Milan. Him and Zlatan would be And Olivier Giroud would be fantastic. I don't think that the Premier League is his league. I think it's a little too physical. I think just like Saul, the pace of play isn't to what he's used to. But I think it was good that we went through him in this Newcastle match because he opened up possibilities. We didn't always score on him, obviously, in that first half. But when we did go to him, he was putting balls in dangerous places. So on the match, I would say Ziyech was the more dangerous of the two, but long term, Cho is probably your best bet in that makeshift front three that you have. So,
Collins just accidentally went on mute. Hold on just a minute.
oh no! Oops. So, speaking on that, we are talking about missing guys. We are talking about missing players. We are entering the time of year. Gosh, can't believe November and December are already creeping up on us here. We are entering time. December, we have, I believe it's 10 matches with the FA Cup coming up. January, we are going to be without Ziyech. We're going to be without Kepa. Without Edward Mendy. Sorry about that. And so we're going to have Kepa in goal. Kepa played midweek against Carabao in the Carabao Cup. Allowed a goal that probably could have done more on. He's certainly no Edward Mendy. But how confident do we feel in a month where Chelsea typically struggle in December and January in the league? How confident are we that Chelsea are a title contender going into a rough month?
If teams are shooting from outside of the box, then I think we have to worry about Kepa. I think it's been well noted that anything outside of the box that goes towards Kepa is usually going to cause problems. But I think our defense is going to be able to carry him, so to speak, because they're not going to allow a ton of shots on goal. Anything that does come on goal, it should be relatively routine, especially for somebody that we paid $80 million for. It should be pretty routine. I don't think we're going to get, the Mendy type saves, because if you look at the two, Mendy is 6'5" and Kepa's 6'1". Like you just don't have that reach. It's, all three of us have played volleyball, as we've talked about. You can't teach height. You just can't. And I think Mendy has obviously the reach and everything else in his favor. But I think we'll be okay. I feel like we might draw a game or two that we probably should win. But overall, I think as we get into January, I think we'll still be, top three going into it.
So I was just trying to look this up while we were going, but when exactly is AFCON? Do we know? I'm looking, it looks like it's January 9th through February 6th, so basically the month of January.
Yeah, so Mendy will leave the first week in January. He may be available for the Liverpool match, but after that, he'll be gone, depending on how far they go, until the first couple weeks in February.
Okay, so as it stands, we have 3 matches in January slated, one being Liverpool, City, and Tottenham. Those are 3 fun ones. And then the first week of February would be Brighton, and then Arsenal after that. So tough matches. I mean, to say the least, it would be matches that you would want your best 11 out, at least for the Liverpool and the City one. Lesser so for Tottenham, but definitely for City and Liverpool. So how confident am I going into that? Very confident that we're going to be a title contender. Coming out of January, though, I could see us definitely slipping a few places, which isn't cause for concern. But I think, how about this? If we're in fourth place through the month of January. I think it's a win, and I think we're in, as long as we're within a couple of points at the top, I think we're in a good place.
Yeah, I mean that early January schedule it's rough. Like there's no way about it. It's rough. I don't know if there's Champions League mixed into January. But I mean, Liverpool, City, a struggling Tottenham. I don't know. I'm not happy about the schedule. Let's put it that way. It's a rough go, and especially with Kepa there. I mean, if a team's going to have a chance to score on a penalty, I feel more comfortable with Kepa stopping it than Mendy. But that's about as far as I go. Liverpool, Mo Salah is playing out of his mind, arguably the best player in the world right now. City is going to be City. They've got just a wealth of talent. Tottenham, who knows? I think it depends on when and if they sack Nuno Espirito Santo. Are they going to fire him right before the Chelsea game? And then you have, which as we've seen, a new manager comes in, they want to play well for the new manager, and there might be a different attitude. So I think a lot of those things you have to take into consideration. But if we're looking at just those three games, Liverpool, City, Tottenham, I think if we get out of there with 5 points, I think we chalked it up as a win, especially without Mendy. So looking at 2 draws and a win.
Yeah, and Matt, I didn't even think about the fact that Champions League might be slated in there, as well as we're in 3 other cups, which probably haven't been scheduled out yet. So we probably got to play that.
Just for reference, we wouldn't play Champions League until February. We would have 1, maybe 2, depending on, I would assume 2, depending on how we play in the FA Cup. 2 FA Cup matches and maybe a Carabao Cup match in that month.
Yeah, I think it's a tough ask. Playing in so many competitions. Granted, by that time we'll have Rom back, we'll have Timo. Hopefully we'll have Pulisic back, provided he doesn't get another injury. We'll be at full strength, but that's also going to be a very high rotation squad at that point, right? I mean, you're going to have to run basically everybody, kind of through the gauntlet. What are you going to get out of Thiago during that time? He's 37. How much are you going to get out of him? Rudy, yeah, he can go for days. Chalobah, yes, he's young. Reece, what about Dave? How much is he going to be able to go? Then you have to figure out, what are you going to do with Alonso, Chilwell? Who's going to do what, where? I think you have a lot. I think you have a lot of questions surrounding that, but at the same time, I think that we're capable of handling it. So as far as Premier League goes, like I said, I think 5 points out of those 3 fixtures, I think that's a positive to take off of that.
And going into December, January, this is where Frank struggled. This is where Conte struggled. This is where Di Matteo struggled. It's tough playing in, and this year we're in 5 competitions. We're in the Club World Cup, which I believe this year is going to be early February, late January. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a struggle, and to have players leaving for Ziyech and Mendy leaving for AFCON, it's going to be even more of a struggle. Do you play Bettinelli in the FA Cup? Do you play him in the Carabao Cup? Do you prioritize one or the over the other? I think the matches that we have Kepa in, I'm feeling confident. Me personally, Kepa looks more relaxed than he did under Sarri. He looks more relaxed than he did under Lampard. He doesn't seem to have the price tag hanging over him under Tuchel, which is great. It's fantastic because, being the world's most expensive keeper obviously comes with a lot of pressure. You got to keep a lot of clean sheets. You got to make a lot of saves. But with how drilled in that defense is, with how drilled in Rudiger, Christensen, Chalobah, Silva, Malang Sarr. Malang Sarr has been a revelation this year. I don't think Kepa's going to see a lot of shots necessarily at his goal. It's just a matter of how many he's going to save at that point. I think absolutely 5 points out of those league matches, Tottenham, Liverpool, City, is going to be it would be fantastic. I would take that in a heartbeat. I would hope that the board, Marina, Roman, etc., Bruce Buck, take that into consideration, because we have that 3-point lead over Liverpool right now. We have a 5-point lead over City. I would assume that, if we take 5 points out of that, we would still be in the title mix. Tuchel would keep his job. And I think Kepa would play a big part of that, because Kepa, even if he makes 70% of his saves, makes 65% of his saves, it's still a 1-1 draw. It's still 1-0. It's still winnable matches.
Well, the other thing is that Kepa hasn't tried to go against Tuchel yet, and Tuchel hasn't tried to take Kepa out of a penalty shootout yet. So you have that for him.
Mr. Manager Kepa Arrizabalaga.
Yes,
exactly. I think one of our strengths this year has been we haven't really drawn or lost games that we shouldn't have won. Like we've handled our business against teams that we should be beating. Our losses have been to City. We drew with Liverpool. We lost to Juve. Like we're losing the good teams, and so I almost think this year our title might be decided based on how we play against the bottom 16 instead of the top 3, not including ourselves. So I think if we handle our business in the month of December, where we play 9+ matches and we win 8 of them or 7 of them and draw the other 2, something like that, we're going to be in really, really good position to win the league. It's going to be where, the time where we drop points to a Brentford, or we drop points to, I don't know, like Leicester would be a great example. If we lose to Leicester, that's where the concerns start to creep in. It's those matches that cause concern for the board, not a 1-0 loss against the City. That's where I think that those are almost expected a little bit in the title push when you're up against a tough schedule and a busy schedule. So we need to handle our business against the rest of them, everyone else's. And I think if we do, we should be in good position. And so I completely agree with Kepa. I feel like he's more confident. I think he's more comfortable back there. And I think our defense is massively improved. So the other thing about AFCON is you can plan for it. So you can, we all know he's going to be coming in for the month and a half, and we can strategize around it. It's not like an injury where it's just like, oh, Kepa's playing, or like, oh, midweek Kepa's in this time or something like that. It's going to be consistent. It's going to be him between the sticks for a full month, and we'll be able to train like that. We'll be able to plan for it. We'll be able to go and plan for it.
So go ahead, Collins.
So we all 3 of us are listeners to Men in Blazers on and off, consistently, not consistently, whatever. We all at some point listen to Men in Blazers. They consistently hammer home, how the elite clubs, how we consider the top 6, including Arsenal, including Spurs, do against the top 6. Most of the time, that does not matter. Most of the time, beating Arsenal, beating Manchester United, beating Tottenham, whoever, does not matter. It's how you do against everyone else. Manchester United consistently over the last couple of years has done awful against top 6, but they have finished top 3. Last year, they finished second in the league. where we have dropped points historically has been against top six, at least the last couple of years. If we can, Matt, as you said, pick up 5 points in January against Spurs, Liverpool, City, 5 points would be huge there. As long as we keep beating the teams that we should beat, it does not matter necessarily how we do against top six, as long as we do not drop all the points against the top six. So as long as Kepa is doing his job, as long as he is making a consistent amount of saves, as long as we are putting up goals, it should not matter as long as we are picking up at least 1 point. Best case scenario, 3 points against these top six teams.
So one thing that I will say is about those 5 points. City's out of the cup. So that's one less competition for them, which means that's more rest for them. Liverpool, obviously they're still in it. They're still in Champions League, all that stuff. But City has basically more rest than us, which, we talked about this weeks, maybe months ago, about the game against Chelsea and City. They played Wycombe Wanderers and we had Villa. And now you're giving them even more time, essentially, because now they're out of that cup. So they're going to be putting all of their focus towards Premier League and Champions League. That's a less competition, less time that they have to spend in matches, things like that. So I think that definitely plays a big role in kind of going into that February schedule or the January schedule. It's just something that I'm a little bit nervous about. But again, I think if we can draw against Liverpool and City, I take those as wins. And then a struggling Tottenham, we win, 1-0, 2-1, whatever the case is. I'm happy with that because I think that is a very productive schedule, especially considering the fact that we're in so many competitions and they are not in as many. So they have more time to rest up and play their best against us as they're prioritizing, or they have the ability to prioritize the Champions League and also the Premier League above other competitions.
Won't Mo be gone from Liverpool if Mendy's gone? For the AFCON?
Hopefully. I mean, him and Sadio Mane.
Yeah, I was trying to think.
Should be maybe Naby Keita. I mean, they should be gone.
Yeah, I was going through
how things shake out, but I mean, you never know, and I don't even know what, are there going to be World Cup qualifiers for South America? What is Brazil, Chile, Argentina? I haven't looked at that schedule, but what does that look like? So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of pieces moving around in that, but I think the biggest one that hits us is obviously Mendy going away. Obviously not too concerned about Ziyech. We've talked plenty about that, but I think Mendy for us is the biggest concern that we have as far as AFCON goes.
I completely agree. I had one final kind of thought just about what we could potentially do to combat our hectic struggle of a schedule, and that would be just to bring back Billy G or Connor Gallagher, 2 guys that are on loan that we might have the ability to have a recall option in their contracts. Don't fully know our ability to do that, but I know it's been talked a little bit about on the Twitterverse. So I think a Connor Gallagher would be a wonderful fit into our system right now. You can kind of throw him on the wings where we need a little bit of help. And boy, that kid's the definition of a box to box kind of a guy. You see his highlight reel against City, and it's attacking and it's defending. It's doing everything, and he just looks like he has a real joy to get involved and want to be a part of things when he's out there. Billy's a little less utilized by Norwich right now, which is frustrating to see, but it's still a development going on, and we all know his talent. So, I don't think he's necessarily ready for the big times, but we're going to have so much squad rotation in that month of December, especially, that we're going to need bodies that can run and really put up positive results for us. So I think one or both of those could be on the table to help us with the depth.
See, and those who follow us on Twitter certainly know, or follow me or the club, or the pod on Twitter, know that the plan that I foresee is recall Gallagher in January, send Billy Gilmour to Palace, and send Saul home. And Saul's been kind of a waste of space. He's been good lately, but not what we need at this point. But I do want to talk a little bit about Billy Gilmour, because his situation is ridiculous at this point. He is very clearly, and Norwich fans, I've seen on Twitter, Norwich fans acknowledge that Billy Gilmour is one of their top 3 players. But he's not playing. He hasn't started a Premier League match since September 18th, I believe, was his last start for Norwich. Daniel Farke, manager of Norwich, has said that he is not in the business of developing other clubs' players, that he is there for Norwich and Norwich alone. Norwich is about to be relegated again. They have now conceded, I believe, in their last 20 matches or 26 matches, 100 goals. So, something ridiculous like that. How do you not play Billy Gilmour? What is the best case scenario? What do Chelsea do about Billy Gilmour?
I am arguably, between the 3 of us, probably the biggest Billy Gilmour fan. As soon as the new kits dropped for this year, I immediately bought a Billy Gilmour Chelsea jersey. I think right now is not the time to bring him back to Chelsea. I think he would be kind of like a spoil of riches. Like, we already have defensive midfielders. We have Jorginho, we have Conte. For the time being, we have Saul. They all play that role. I think that would. I still don't think he would get into the squad that way. I do think with what we have going on, especially with kind of the struggles that we have in the final third, without, at least right now, without Rom and Timo, I think Connor Gallagher would be a much better fit and somebody that could be implemented right away. But I mean, long term, Billy Gilmour, he's proven that he can do it. Last year, he played against Liverpool, Liverpool was arguably at the peak of what they were doing last year, and he was man of the match. Like, it's hard to argue against that. Like, he does what we expect a defensive midfielder to do. But right now, I don't think it's the time for him to come back to Chelsea. I do like the idea of him going elsewhere so that he can get playing time, which I really think that would help him and help develop him even more so. But I don't think Norwich is the place for him. Kind of what you just talked about, he's not getting playing time. And that's the reason why you put somebody out on loan, is to get playing time, to get reps, to help them develop. And he's not getting that. So I think you need to recall him, find a different partnering team that will take him on loan. Hopefully it's in the Premier League so that he gets that experience. But I mean, right now, Norwich just is not working out for him.
And we've seen this week that sending players abroad is not the best. Ethan Ampadu just got sent off for the most ridiculous red card that I've ever seen in my life. Should not have been sent off at all. But Matt, you're right. Norwich is not the place for Billy Gilmour. Farka has said that he will not, he will not develop players for another club. And I understand that Tuchel and Farka go way back and all that. But if we were to recall, I don't think Gallagher is coming back. I would love for Gallagher to come back. But if we were to recall Billy Gilmour, what would be the best spot for him in the Premier League?
As far as a team or with Chelsea?
Either.
Not with Chelsea. I think right now is not the time to bring him back. I think for a different team, I would say you look at something maybe like a Brentford or a Villa. I think you look at a team like that who's okay. They're kind of pushing the relegation line, but you bring him to a team like that where he's arguably going to be one of the top 5 players on the team, and that's going to give him predominant minutes over a lot of other players. I think you have to put him in a situation where he's going to succeed, and we were hoping that would be Norwich, and it just hasn't worked out. So I think you put him on a team like that. A team like Palace, maybe it could work, but then again, if Gallagher stays there, now you're playing 2 Chelsea players who are on loan with Palace.
The thing, the Premier League has a rule now where you can only loan 1 player per club. So we would have to recall Gallagher to send Billy Gilmour to Palace.
Right. So then it becomes, do you halter the progress that Connor Gallagher has made to improve Billy Gilmour? Right? I mean, that would have to be a question. So
I think if we bring in Connor back, though, I think that's going to further his development as well with Chelsea. I think he could be a part of our mainstay for a while. So I would like that move.
So where do you put him over a healthy squad? Do you put him over Pulisic? Do you put him over Mount? Do you put him over Cho? Do you put him over Timo? Or does he just stay somebody that's on the bench, kind of like a Ross?
No. I think I've been pushing for this for weeks now. You send Saul back to Spain. Atletico need him. I think Ross Barkley goes. I think you sent. I love Ross. I love Ross Barkladinho, as I called him this week, doing all those step overs against Newcastle. It's great. I think Ross Barkley would be a fantastic fit anywhere else in the Premier League. I think he'd be a fantastic fit for Villa. He'd be a fantastic fit for West Ham. But he's not going to find the playing time here. I think if you recall Gallagher to send Gilmour to Palace, then Gallagher takes over takes over Ross Barkley's spot and kind of that plays every 3 matches as a sub. But at the same time, he's training with the best midfielders in the world in Conte, Kova, Jorginho. Matt, as much as you love that. He's playing with he's training with some of the best midfielders in the world. I think that'd be great for Gallagher. But I think Patrick Vieira is doing a great job with Connor Gallagher. I think maybe leaving him at Palace would be a great idea. I think Billy Gilmour would do best at Aston Villa, at a Leeds. I don't think necessarily recalling both of them would be the best idea. I think it would be great. It'd be great for our squad depth, but I don't think it's best for their development.
Yeah, I mean, what you do with one might hurt the other. So it's kind of picking the lesser of 2 evils. And that's why I think as much as it would be good to have Connor Gallagher back, he's getting so much playing time at Palace right now. You have to just let him stay there. because he's not going to get that playing time at Chelsea. Everybody and their mother knows that. And, you talked about Ross. He's doing a great job when he gets the minutes. He doesn't get a lot of them, but when he does, he's productive. He's a threat. He's making the most of his opportunities when it's presented to him.
He came on and Chelsea scored 3 goals.
Coincidence? I think not.
You can't argue that. You can't argue that. So I think having Ross, I don't like the idea of sending Ross away, especially considering the fact that he can play that midfield, he can play the wing, he can, as much as we want him to, he can play that false 9 that Kai is attempting to play. I think Connor needs to stay at Palace. I think we need to find a different club for Billy. Whoever that may be, hopefully Premier League.
Yeah, I think Villa would be a great fit. Brentford comes to mind, or even like a Leicester, someone where you can get those regular minutes. So I don't have much more to add on the Billy Connor, except for if I think we brought Connor back, I think he could potentially slot where like a Ziyech plays, play a little bit further out for us, and play a little bit on the wing. So he could. I know our midfield is pretty well established, and he wouldn't, if he was just fighting with Conte and Jorginho and Kovacic for minutes, it would be bad for him. But I think he could also play elsewhere. But I can't believe we've gone this far, probably over our usually slotted hour guys, but and not mention Kovacic and his injury. So that fucking sucks that we lose him to a hamstring, a training hamstring at the last couple minutes of practice. So that's a blow for us. He was really coming into his own and one of our most consistent, really just ice cold defender, box to box, creative. I mean, you name it, he was doing it for us. So it's a big blow that really hasn't gotten a ton of talking about, just because of how good we've been and how we've handled our business. But it sucks to see, and really sad about that is.
And not only the fact that he's injured, I've seen reports he's gonna be up 5 weeks. That's a long time for one of our best midfielders, especially one of our most creative. Certainly, Kovacic will run at defenders like Loftus-Cheek does, but Kovacic can also distribute probably better than RLC can at the moment. You're right, Parker. That absolutely is a big blow, and I'm surprised that it hasn't got more coverage than it has.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who listens knows that I'm a huge fan of Kova. Arguably the best midfielder that we have. It sucks. Like, it just does. Especially with a hamstring, because you never know what the recovery is going to be on that. It's kind of one of those injuries that you just don't know. It could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 months. You really don't know. But the fact that he was arguably number 1 on the team sheet for as much as he played and for the work that he was doing, and you're going to get at least 90 minutes out of him at full bore. You're getting at least 90 out of him. It sucks in the fact that you lose an attacker and a defender all at the same time. And hopefully he's back sooner rather than later, but it's definitely something that should not be taken lightly, despite the fact that we do have a plethora of people we can throw in the midfield. Not a lot of people can do what Kova can and what he has done for this year, last year, things like that. And Collins, Parker, what you guys said, he's coming into his own. Like, he's got to be one of your top players on your top 11. If you're going up against like a top 6 team or something like that, he's got to be on the team sheet. So it's it's a big loss that, it's not being talked enough about, like, his impact to the team and everything that he's brought to it.
So there's one more point that I wanted to bring up on this pod. And again, I know Parker, you had mentioned that we're running a little long here. But we talk about Kova and his significance, certainly to Chelsea as well as to the Croatian national team. Pulisic is coming back this week. We have an international break in 12 days. U.S. plays Mexico. Do we think Berhalter is going to recall Pulisic? Is Pulisic going to miss more time with Chelsea? How significant is this going to be? How significant are the next two matches going to be to Pulisic and to Chelsea?
I mean, I think Christian's going to take his time getting back, especially into the Premier League. I don't know if he's going to be ready to go yet. He's getting back into the training of it, and he's got a nagging injury as well. So I think it's going to take him a little bit of time. I hope Tuchel goes on record and says, "Oh, he's definitely not ready for this international break. He needs to stay in London and train with us and not go back and play." We've talked about this before, guys, but I hate it saying this as an American because I want us to do well and qualify for the World Cup. But right now, my top priority is Chelsea and getting Pulisic back healthy and consistent.
And certainly with how close the octagon is at this point, the U.S. honestly needs Pulisic. They need him to play against Mexico. But God, I'm hoping he doesn't. I am so sick of seeing on Chelsea Twitter how much people are saying Pulisic is a bust, how much people are saying we need to sell him, how people are saying he's insignificant to the squad. We all remember what Pulisic did, especially in Project Restart. Pulisic is an integral part to this team, and especially when we don't have Timo, we don't have Rom. We need somebody who can attack the goal. We need somebody who can score goals on their own, not even in build-up play, just somebody who will attack and will attack the goal, will go at defenders. I really hope Berhalter does not call him up. I hope that they give him some time to recover at Chelsea. It's important that he comes back to the club in full health. And I feel like if he goes and he plays this international break, which again, we play Mexico and then we play at Jamaica. I don't want him playing in Jamaica. That's gonna be a terrible pitch. I don't want him playing in Jamaica. He needs to focus on the club.
The fact that we have to recall Christian Pulisic to be a team who, on paper, we should beat in Mexico and Jamaica is terrible. It's a terrible look for U.S. soccer. It's terrible. You need your players to step up. They haven't. We've talked about players going over to Europe. Everybody's like, yeah, we need players to go to Europe, start playing in Europe. Great, we have that. But you're telling me that you can't produce against Honduras? You can barely do anything against Panama? Really?
Bottom of the table, Jamaica.
It's embarrassing. Quite frankly, it's just embarrassing. I think I'm in agreement. Christian, stay in London. If Berhalter calls, say you have dinner plans, say anything else.
New phone,
you're busy. Like, you're busy, you're on vacation. I don't care what it is. You can't be disrupted. Throw on do not disturb on your phone or on Zoom, whatever. You can't be bothered. And let everybody else show up and let them produce the way that they should have been from the start. We have too much talent on the men's national team for them to be scraping by in the octagon.
I'll wrap it
or
up.
the hex, whatever it is.
I hope he doesn't get selected, and you know what? I hope it gives a vote of confidence to the USA players that are there, that they don't need, Christian to come bail them out or anything like that. I think it does some good for the morale if you're able to go into Mexico and get a win. But my fear is that you're spot on, Collins, that Berhalter will be calling and that he will be playing. So we'll all say our rosaries and make sure he comes back fit and doesn't pick something else up, because I too hear the rumbles of people not happy with not his performance. I don't think they're mad at his performance, Collins. I think they're happy with his performance. He just hasn't been available. He just hasn't been around enough. I read something crazy that he's been hurt for about 365 days, a full year. He hasn't been available to be selected. And when you spend money on a player, you expect him to be able to be selected. And that's a quality that, we talked about it with like an Eden Hazard, where it's, we were able to rely on him a ton when we had him. And when he goes to Madrid and then he's not available, he's way less valuable as a player. So we need Christian to be available to play and do what he knows best.
I think the other thing is, if you're going to recall him for a game against Mexico, it's going to be a physical game. That there is a very good chance that he's going to get injured again. Like that's just a rivalry game. That it's going to be very physical. There are going to be a lot of hard challenges. Are you really prepared to throw him into that game when he hasn't been able to play for the last month? It's just one of those things where, to me, it doesn't make sense. Again, I'm not the head coach of the men's national team, but at the same time, I don't want to jeopardize that, considering the fact that even if you get out of there with a draw, I still think that's a good. I still think we take that as a win, and then you can go into Jamaica and be able to hopefully handle your business without Christian. But to bring him back to a game that is going to be an absolute dogfight, I think that's asking a lot out of him, and I personally don't like it.
100% agreed on that. But boys, I think we're running up on time here. Maybe later in the week we'll do a brief, maybe not full Burnley preview show. We do a Burnley on the weekend on the 6th. Didn't have time to get to him today, but that's quite all right. We had plenty to discuss after this week's matches. So we do certainly forge ahead here. We do have Burnley on the weekend. We have Malmo midweek. We certainly know much about both of those teams, but in the meantime, we'll give you a break. We'll chime in later in the week here, but you can certainly follow us on all social media at Flag Down Pod, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can certainly, again, listen to us anywhere you listen to podcasts, Google, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Again, just look for the Flag Stays Down podcast, as Arlo White is famous for saying multiple times per match. Boys, it's been a pleasure. I'd like to cheers to Benny Chills and Reece James scoring more than Jadon Sancho and pretty much any Jack Grealish. Name another player, anyone else. Cheers to our wingbacks.
Cheers.
All right, boys, it's been a pleasure. We'll talk again next week.
Sounds good, man.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Later, boys.
Cheers.